The fluorescent lights in Roosevelt Hospital's cardiac wing hummed with the kind of persistence that made sleep impossible. Claire Bennett had been awake for 37 hours straight, her sketchpad balanced on her knees, fingers moving in practiced strokes, even as exhaustion blurred the edges of her vision. The charcoal smudged across her palms matched the shadows under her eyes, 29 years old, and she looked like she'd aged a decade in the 3 days since her grandmother's stroke. Eleanor Bennett lay in the bed before her tubes and wires, transforming the woman who'd raised her into something fragile and foreign. The steady beep of the heart monitor provided rhythm to Claire's pencil-scratching paper, drawing the only thing that ever made sense when the world tilted sideways. Her grandmother's hands, those hands that had braided her hair for the first day of 3rd grade after her parents died. Hands that had taught her to hold a paintbrush, to see light and shadow, to find beauty in the ordinary. The neurologist's words from this morning still echoed with clinical precision. Ischemic stroke, left hemisphere. Motor function compromised. Recovery possible with intensive rehabilitation. The dollar amount that followed those words had hit harder than any diagnosis. $47,000 in total medical costs, insurance covering 60%. Specialized rehab facility running $3,500 monthly for a minimum 6-month program. Claire had done the math 17 times, each calculation yielding the same impossible number. $21,000. She had $432 in her checking account and a maxed-out credit card she'd been paying down at $50 monthly. Her freelance illustration work brought in maybe $1,500 a month when she was lucky, covering her $500 studio rent in Brooklyn and not much else. Her phone buzzed. Lily Chen's name lit the screen. "Tell me you're not still at the hospital." Her best friend's voice carried equal parts concern and exasperation. "Where else would I be? Home, sleeping, eating something that didn't come from a vending machine." A pause. "How is she?" Claire's gaze drifted to her grandmother's face, peaceful in medicated sleep. "Stable. The swelling's going down, but without the rehab." Her throat closed around the rest. "We'll figure it out. I've got you booked for 4 events this week. That charity gala at the plaza on Friday is $800 alone." 4 events. Claire's hand cramped around the phone. She'd worked 3 events in a week exactly once and spent the following Tuesday unable to lift a pencil. "You need $21,000 in 3 months. The math is simple, even if the execution isn't." Lily's tone softened. "I know you're terrified, but Eleanor raised you to be a fighter, so fight." The call ended. Claire stared at her grandmother's hands again, willing those fingers to move, to squeeze back, to confirm that the woman who'd given her everything would still be here to see her make something of herself. The sketchpad page was full now, dozens of studies of those beloved hands, each line a prayer disguised as art. A nurse appeared in the doorway, kind eyes above a surgical mask. "Visiting hours ended 20 minutes ago, honey. You need rest too." Claire gathered her supplies with movements that had become automatic. Charcoal sticks into their worn tin, sketchpad into her canvas messenger bag, alongside the 3 library books on advanced illustration techniques she never had time to read. The hospital smell clung to her clothes, antiseptic and desperation, and too strong coffee. Outside, October in Manhattan bit with unexpected cold. Claire pulled her second-hand peacoat tighter and started the 40-minute subway ride to Brooklyn, her mind already cataloging the week ahead. Friday's Plaza Gala. Saturday evening corporate event in Midtown. Sunday afternoon wedding in Queens. Tuesday, private party on the Upper East Side. If she landed even one additional booking, maybe reached out to that gallery owner who'd expressed interest in her work last spring, maybe sold a few prints online. The numbers still didn't add up. They never added up. Her studio apartment greeted her with familiar shabbiness, 400 square feet of chipped paint and radiator clanks, and a window overlooking a brick wall. But the north-facing skylight filled the space with good drawing light, and the oversized desk she'd found on the street held her entire artistic life. Finished portraits in cardboard portfolios. Works in progress clipped to a wire strung across one wall. and in the bottom drawer wrapped in tissue paper like something precious, the project that lived in her heart. Claire pulled out the folder with careful hands. The Little Creature Who Learned to Stay. 32 pages of illustrations, each one rendered in watercolor and ink, telling the story of a small monster who believed her true self was too frightening to show the world. A creature who hid behind shells and shadows until someone taught her that the scariest thing wasn't being seen, it was never being known. She'd started the book at 16, refined it through art school, poured every fear and hope into its pages. Publishers had sent form rejections for years. Too niche, too dark, not commercial enough. The manuscript lived in her desk drawer, now a beautiful ghost of what might have been. Her phone alarm cut through the 3 a.m. silence. 4 hours until she needed to be conscious. Claire crawled into bed without undressing her grandmother's face, following her into dreams that smelled like hospital corridors and tasted like failure. Friday arrived with the kind of autumn sunshine that made Manhattan look almost magical. Claire stood in the Plaza Hotel's gilded ballroom, her portable easel set up in a corner that provided good light and a view of the entire space. The borrowed navy cocktail dress from Lily fit everywhere except the shoulders, where the fabric gaped slightly, requiring constant adjustment. Her fingers were already stained with charcoal despite the baby wipes she'd used obsessively in the cab. The gala hummed with wealth so casual it felt like violence. Women in gowns worth more than Claire's annual income. Men whose watches could fund her grandmother's entire rehabilitation. Champagne circulating on silver trays like water, each glass probably costing more than her subway fare. She focused on the work on capturing the anniversary couple who'd requested a portrait for their 40th celebration. The husband's laugh boomed across the space. "You make us look 30 years younger." Claire smiled, adding shadow beneath the woman's chin with practiced subtlety. "I draw what I see. You two still look at each other like newlyweds." "How do you capture that?" The wife leaned closer, genuine wonder in her expression. "The feeling between people. I watch for the small things, the way you lean toward each other, how his hand finds yours without looking. Those details tell the real story." Claire added final touches to their intertwined fingers, the gesture so natural they probably didn't notice doing it anymore. The woman's eyes glistened. "Our granddaughter is getting married next spring. Would you be available?" Claire's heart kicked. "Absolutely. Here's my card." She pulled a slightly bent business card from her bag, professional despite the wear. They drifted away with their finished portrait, and for exactly 3 minutes and 42 seconds, Claire allowed herself to feel successful, to imagine a future where her talent mattered more than her bank balance, where art paid bills and saved grandmothers and proved that beautiful things had value beyond decoration. Then the weight of someone's stare pressed against her awareness like a physical thing. She turned her head slowly, scanning the ballroom, and found him. A man sitting alone in the adjacent lounge area, positioned on a velvet sofa with his legs stretched out in a posture that screamed both relaxation and complete disinterest in the gala happening 20 feet away. His suit was dark navy, perfectly tailored, the kind of expensive that didn't announce itself. Dark hair styled with just enough deliberate imperfection to look effortless. He was scrolling through his phone, thumb moving in lazy strokes, but his attention wasn't on the screen. He was watching her with the kind of focus that made her skin prickle. Claire looked away quickly, throat dry despite the champagne she'd been offered, and declined. Probably just another bored rich person wondering what the help was doing in the ballroom. She turned back to her easel, preparing for the next portrait request, willing her hands to stop shaking. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne flutes. Claire reached for one without thinking, needing something to do with her hands, something to settle the sudden anxiety crawling up her spine. The weight of that stranger's gaze didn't lift. If anything, it intensified. She glanced back. He was still watching, one eyebrow slightly raised now, a hint of something that might have been amusement playing at the corner of his mouth. Heat flooded Claire's face. She grabbed the champagne glass too quickly, fingers slipping on condensation, and that's when her heel caught the edge of her equipment bag. Physics took over with merciless efficiency. Her foot tangled, her body pitched forward. The champagne glass flew from her hand in a golden arc liquid, catching light like something beautiful before becoming a disaster. She saw the man's outstretched foot half a second before her shin connected with it. No time to catch herself, no time to do anything but fall forward into the lounge area, gravity and momentum and sheer mortification carrying her directly into his lap. The champagne completed its trajectory, splashing across his suit jacket and shirt with the sound of very expensive fabric meeting French wine. Time stopped. Claire found herself sitting on a complete stranger's legs, her hands braced against his chest, face inches from his, her entire body frozen in a position so humiliating she actually wished the floor would open and swallow her whole. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the lounge's softer lighting. His expression registered surprise for maybe half a second before shifting into something unreadable, analytical, like he was studying a particularly interesting problem. The silence in the lounge area became absolute, that specific kind of quiet that happens when something so absurd occurs that witnesses need a moment to process reality. Well, his voice was low, controlled with just the barest edge of what might have been amusement. This is unexpected. Claire's brain had stopped producing coherent thought. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I... He arched one eyebrow with surgical precision. Breathe. Complete sentences are optional, but they help. The instruction unlocked something in her nervous system. She became suddenly horrifyingly aware of exactly where she was sitting. On his lap. On a complete stranger's lap at a charity gala in front of 200 people. The champagne spread across his chest in a dark stain that was absolutely, definitely not going to come out. Your suit. The words came out strangled. Oh God, your suit. He glanced down at himself with the same casual interest someone might show checking the weather. It was a good suit. Claire blinked, confusion cutting through panic. His tone held absolute seriousness that might have been sarcasm. $4,000 ago. The number hit her like a physical blow. $4,000. Her brain tried to process that amount, failed, tried again. 4,000. He tilted his head slightly, studying her reaction with clinical interest. Would you like me to repeat it more slowly? Or is shock part of your comprehension process? Some distant functioning part of Claire's brain recognized she'd been sitting in this man's lap for far too long. She tried to stand, moving too quickly, and Sarah's borrowed dress caught on something, probably her own dignity, and she stumbled again. His hands came up, steadying her waist with impersonal efficiency, and the touch sent electricity through her entire nervous system. I'm sorry. She finally managed to extract herself, standing on shaking legs. The dress. It caught. He remained perfectly still, making no move to help or hinder, just watching with that same unreadable expression. Do you always make entrances like this? Or am I somehow special? Indignation finally broke through the mortification. It was an accident. He glanced at his watch with theatrical casualness. Usually, accidents don't involve sitting on strangers for... A pause. 47 seconds and counting. You were counting. The question came out too loud, too shrill. His voice took on a slightly dangerous tone. Are you interested in the final number? The absurdity of the entire situation finally penetrated her panic. Here she was, having just ruined a $4,000 suit, arguing with a man whose lap she'd occupied for nearly a minute at a gala where she was supposed to be working professionally. A laugh bubbled up, inappropriate and slightly hysterical. I'll pay for the suit. The words came out before any kind of mental filter engaged. He made a sound that might have been a laugh if it weren't so perfectly contained. With what exactly? Claire lifted her chin, grasping for any remaining shred of dignity. Money. Eventually. In installments. Many installments. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. How many installments are we discussing here? Her pathological honesty kicked in before common sense could intervene. 400, possibly 800 at my current rate. 800. He repeated the word like he was tasting it. Ambitious. I'm an optimistic person. Claire crossed her arms, aware of how defensive the gesture looked. Something shifted in his eyes. Actual amusement this time, real and unguarded. Clearly, considering you're still standing here instead of running away in horror. I wasn't. She paused, processing his words. Wait, should I be running in horror? He stood unfolding from the sofa with a grace that should be illegal for someone whose suit was dripping champagne. He was tall, very tall. Claire had to tilt her head back in a way that made her neck protest and her pride wince. The exit is behind you, the floor is beneath you. Feel entirely free to use either. The dismissal in his tone sparked something defiant in Claire's chest. Are you always this insufferable to people who accidentally fall on you? I wouldn't know. This is my first time experiencing lap-based assault. His tone remained maddeningly calm. It wasn't assault. It was... She searched for the right word. Physics. Bad physics. Interesting defense strategy. Blame the laws of motion. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed at the champagne stain with complete futility. I'll be sure to mention that to my dry cleaner. Claire watched him, this infuriating stranger with his perfect posture and his $4,000 suit and his ability to make her feel simultaneously ridiculous and somehow challenged. You're enjoying this. Am I? He looked at her with apparent genuine curiosity. Making me feel awful about an accident. Yes, you are. He stopped dabbing at the stain. For a long moment he just looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Softened, maybe, or perhaps just became more honest. You're right. I apologize. The words sounded genuine. That was unkind. The unexpected apology threw her completely off balance. Oh, thank you. Although in my defense you did spend 47 seconds in my lap before attempting to leave. You're still counting. Claire couldn't help the exasperation in her voice. I'm a detail-oriented person. He extended his hand. Sebastian Hunt. She stared at the offered hand, her own fingers stained with charcoal champagne, probably smudged on her dress, her entire professional reputation lying in ruins somewhere near the sofa. But his hand remained steady, waiting. Claire Bennett. She shook at his palm, warm and dry against hers. The moment their hands connected, the plaza's side entrance burst open with a commotion that made half the ballroom turn. Claire's stomach dropped. A delivery man stood in the doorway looking confused and apologetic, holding an enormous floral arrangement. Behind him, visible through the still open door, a woman in an elegant coat was saying something sharp to the hotel staff. But Claire only registered these details peripherally because her entire focus had narrowed to the man she could see through the crowd. Tyler Brooks, her ex-boyfriend. The man she'd spent 8 months building a new life to escape. Their eyes met across the ballroom. His expression shifted from surprise to something darker, more possessive. That smile she'd learned to fear spread across his face, the one that said he'd found something he'd been looking for. Every muscle in Claire's body locked. Fight or flight, and flight was winning by a landslide. I have to go. The words came out strangled, barely audible. Sebastian's attention had shifted to the entrance, then back to her face. Something in his expression sharpened. Are you all right? Yes, fine. I need to. Claire grabbed her messenger bag from beside the easel, leaving half her supplies scattered. The only thought in her head was exit now before Tyler crossed the ballroom and ruined everything else tonight had already destroyed. She made it 3 steps before Sebastian's voice stopped her. Claire. She turned back despite herself. He was still standing by the sofa, champagne-stained, and somehow still looking more put together than she'd ever managed in her life. He held out a business card between 2 fingers. For the installment plan. His voice carried just loud enough for her to hear. In case you were serious. Claire took the card on autopilot, her brain still screaming run, run, run. She didn't look at it. Didn't process anything except the need to get out before Tyler reached her. The plaza's service exit led to a side street. Claire burst through the door into cold October air, her lungs burning, hands shaking so hard the business card nearly slipped from her fingers. She ran for 2 blocks before her heels forced her to slow down, ducking into a coffee shop and collapsing into a corner booth. Her phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. Then another. And another. Tyler had her number. Of course he still had her number. She'd changed it twice and he always found the new one somehow. The texts started rolling in, each one a small violation. Saw you at the plaza. You looked beautiful. We need to talk. You can't avoid me forever. I miss you. Claire blocked the number with shaking fingers. He'd get a new one. He always did. The business card lay on the table, slightly bent from her death grip. Cream-colored stock embossed lettering. Sebastian Hunt, CEO, Hunt & Co. Publishing. A Manhattan address. A phone number. An email. Publishing. He owned a publishing house. The man whose lap she'd occupied for 47 seconds was a CEO of a publishing company. Claire started laughing, the sound edging toward hysteria. Of course. Of course he was. She'd just ruined a $4,000 suit belonging to someone who could probably buy and sell her entire existence as a tax write-off. Her phone rang. Lily's name this time blessedly familiar. Did you finish the gala? How much did they pay you? No preamble, straight to business. There was an incident. Claire stared at the business card like it might contain answers. I fell into someone's lap and ruined his suit, and then I ran away and left half my supplies, and I think I just destroyed any chance of getting hired by the plaza ever again. Silence. Then, you what? Claire explained the whole humiliating sequence, leaving out the part about Tyler. She couldn't talk about Tyler yet. Couldn't name the fear still making her hands shake. Okay. Lily's voice shifted into problem-solving mode. This is fixable. Did you at least get the anniversary couple's payment? They have my card. They mentioned their granddaughter's wedding. The memory felt like it had happened in another lifetime. Good. That's good. And this guy whose suit you ruined, did he seem angry? Claire thought about Sebastian's expression, the controlled amusement, the unexpected apology, the business card. No, more like entertained. He gave me his card. Publishing CEO. Lily's tone changed. Claire, that's Sebastian Hunt. Hunt & Company published that illustrated memoir that won the National Book Award last year. They're huge in literary circles. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too bright. Claire looked at the business card again, the embossed letters seeming to mock her. I spilled champagne all over a National Book Award publisher. And you got his card, which means he's interested in something. In me paying for his dry cleaning bill. Or, Lily drew out the word, in you as an artist. You were working a gala. He saw you drawing. Did he ask about your work? No, we were too busy discussing my 47-second trespassing violation. Lily made an exasperated sound. I'm texting you the address of Hunt & Co. You're going to email him a professional apology and your portfolio. Lily, no, I can't. Your grandmother needs $21,000. You have 3 months. Pride is a luxury you can't afford. The words were harsh but accurate. Email him tonight. The worst that happens is he ignores you. The best is he gives you work. The call ended. Claire sat in the coffee shop for another hour, watching the business card like it might bite her. Sebastian Hunt, CEO, the man who'd counted every second of her mortification, who'd been kind enough to apologize when he didn't have to, who'd given her his card when any rational person would have asked her to leave. Her phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. Still thinking about you? Tyler. Different number. Same obsession. Claire deleted it, blocked the number, and pulled up her email. She photographed the business card with shaking hands and started typing. Mr. Hunt, I apologize for the incident at the plaza this evening. I take full responsibility for the damage to your suit and would like to arrange payment. I'm a freelance portrait artist and illustrator. If you're interested in reviewing my portfolio in lieu of immediate payment, I've attached samples of my work. Sincerely, Claire Bennett. She attached her 10 best commercial pieces and hit send before she could think better of it. The email disappeared into the void. She gathered her remaining supplies and headed for the subway, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. Roosevelt Hospital was still humming with activity when Claire arrived at 11 p.m. Her grandmother was awake, propped up on pillows, the left side of her face still slack, but her eyes sharp and aware. "You're wearing a fancy dress to visit an old woman." Eleanor's speech was slurred but comprehensible, each word a small victory. Claire collapsed into the bedside chair. "I worked a gala. It didn't go exactly as planned." "Tell me." Eleanor's right hand reached out, fingers trembling slightly. Claire took it carefully. The whole story spilled out: the fall, the champagne, the 47 seconds, Sebastian Hunt, and his $4,000 suit. She left out Tyler. Some things were too heavy to share with someone recovering from a stroke. Eleanor listened with the same focused attention she'd always given Claire's stories, even when they were about playground drama and algebra tests. When Claire finished, her grandmother's mouth curved into a lopsided smile. "Did you like him?" "Grandma." Claire felt heat rise in her face. "I ruined his suit." "That's not what I asked." Eleanor's eyes held that familiar twinkle, the one that said she saw through every deflection Claire had ever attempted. "He was infuriating, arrogant. He counted every second I was in his lap." Claire paused. "But he apologized when he didn't have to, and he gave me his card." "Handsome, Grandma." Eleanor's laugh came out raspy. "I'm old, not dead, and you're blushing." Claire pressed her cool hands to her warm cheeks. "It doesn't matter. I'll probably never see him again." Eleanor's eyes drifted closed, fatigue winning. "Maybe, maybe not. The best things in my life were accidents. Found your grandfather by getting lost on the subway. Ended up at the right stop at the right time. You've told me that story 100 times. Because it's true. Sometimes the universe pushes you where you need to go." Eleanor's fingers squeezed Claire's hand with surprising strength. "Promise me something. Anything. Stay open to unexpected blessings, even when they come wrapped in ruined suits and embarrassing falls." Her grandmother's breathing evened out sleep, claiming her mid-conversation. Claire stayed another hour, sketching her grandmother's profile in the dim light, memorizing every line and shadow. The doctors said she'd recover most of her mobility with proper rehabilitation. The $21,000 question was how to make that happen. Her phone buzzed at 1:47 a.m. Email notification from Sebastian Hunt. Subject: Re-apology, Ms. Bennett. Your apology is accepted, though unnecessary. The suit was indeed expensive, but accidents happen. I'm more interested in your portfolio than payment arrangements. Your commercial work is technically excellent. However, I notice you only attached portrait samples. Do you have other illustration work? Specifically, anything in the children's book or narrative illustration category? I'll be at Greenlight Bookstore in Brooklyn tomorrow, Saturday afternoon around 2 p.m. If you'd like to discuss this in person, bring any additional portfolio pieces you think relevant. Best, Sebastian Hunt. Claire read the email 3 times, her exhausted brain struggling to process the words. He wanted to see more work. He wanted to meet at a bookstore in her neighborhood. She pulled open the bottom drawer of her hospital overnight bag where she'd tucked the tissue-wrapped folder for safekeeping. The little creature who learned to stay. 32 pages of her heart and hope and fear. Tomorrow was Saturday. She had 2 hours to get home sleep and decide whether to show a publishing CEO the work that mattered most. Her grandmother's words echoed. Stay open to unexpected blessings. Claire pulled out her phone and replied with fingers that had stopped shaking. Mr. Hunt, I'll be there at 2 p.m. Thank you for the opportunity. Claire Bennett. Sleep came in fragments, dreams full of falling and champagne and dark brown eyes that counted every second. Saturday afternoon found Claire standing outside Greenlight Bookstore 15 minutes early, the October sun doing nothing to warm her nervous sweat. She'd changed clothes 4 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a cream sweater that at least looked intentionally casual. Her messenger bag held the tissue-wrapped folder, 10 additional illustration samples, and her entire professional future. The bookstore smelled like coffee and paper and possibility. Claire wandered the children's section, studying the illustration styles, the color palettes, the stories that had made it past gatekeepers and onto shelves. Each book represented someone's dream realized, someone who'd been brave enough or lucky enough or connected enough to break through. "You know the books don't talk back, right?" Claire spun around so fast she nearly dropped her bag. Sebastian Hunt stood 3 feet away, looking completely different from last night. Dark jeans, charcoal sweater, brown leather jacket. Still expensive, but softer somehow, more human. His hair wasn't styled into perfection, looked like he'd run his hands through it several times, leaving it slightly disheveled. "You're early." She blurted the observation. "So are you." He slipped his hands into his pockets. "I noticed you talking to the books. Figured I should intervene before they got uncomfortable." "I wasn't talking to them, I was observing, researching." The defensiveness in her voice made her wince. "Of course. Very different from talking." His expression remained completely serious, which somehow made the teasing worse. Claire narrowed her eyes. "Are you always this annoying to people who show up to professional meetings?" "Absolutely. I find it weeds out anyone without a sense of humor." He gestured toward the bookstore's small cafe area. "Coffee, or are you more of a judge illustration styles while standing awkwardly person?" Despite herself, Claire felt her mouth curve into a reluctant smile. "Coffee would be good." They settled at a corner table, 2 lattes between them. Sebastian folded his hands on the table, his attention entirely focused on her in a way that made her skin prickle with awareness. "You brought additional work." "Not a question." Claire nodded, pulling out her bag. "I have more commercial samples. Event portraits, editorial illustrations, some design work." She laid them out carefully, watching his face for reactions. He studied each piece with methodical attention, occasionally asking technical questions about medium or timeline. His focus was intense, professional, and somehow more intimate than any conversation she'd had in months. "These are excellent." He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. "But I get the sense you're avoiding showing me something else." Claire's throat went dry. "What makes you think that because you keep touching your bag like there's something precious inside, and because you asked about children's book illustration in your email but didn't send any samples?" He leaned back slightly. "I'm curious about what you're protecting." Her hands trembled as she pulled out the tissue-wrapped folder. 21 years of carrying this project. 16 years since she'd first sketched the little creature. Countless hours poured into pages that publishers had rejected without even reading past the query letter. It's personal, my dream project." She unwrapped the tissue carefully. "I started it when I was 16 and I've been working on it ever since." The little creature who learned to stay lay between them, 32 pages of watercolor and ink and vulnerability. Sebastian didn't reach for it immediately, just looked at the title page with that same focused attention he'd given everything else. "May I?" Claire nodded, unable to speak. He turned pages slowly, his expression unreadable. The cafe noise faded to background static. Claire watched his eyes move across her illustrations, looking for any hint of reaction. Approval, disgust, boredom, anything. He reached the final page, the little creature emerging from her shell, surrounded by others who saw her clearly and loved her anyway. Sebastian closed the portfolio with careful hands. "Tell me about this book." Claire's prepared pitch evaporated. Instead, truth came tumbling out. "It's about a creature who thinks she has to hide who she really is because everyone will be afraid if they see the truth. She builds shells and walls and learns to make herself small, until someone teaches her that the scariest thing isn't being seen, it's never being known." Who taught her that? Another creature who'd been hiding too. Claire's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Someone who understood that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means staying even when you want to run." Silence stretched between them. Sebastian's fingers rested on the closed portfolio, and when he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. "My mother died when I was 8. The confession came without preamble. Books were the only place that made sense afterward, stories about kids who hurt and survived anyway. He looked up, meeting her eyes. I want children who are struggling to have this book. I think it could change lives. Claire's heart forgot how to beat. You, what? I own Hunt and Company Publishing. He pulled a business card from his wallet, different from the one he'd given her last night, this one with his direct office line. I'd like to publish The Little Creature Who Learned to Stay, full contract advanced distribution, the real thing. The bookstore tilted sideways. Claire gripped the table edge. This is a joke. Because I fell in your lap and ruined your suit, this is some kind of elaborate... This is business. Sebastian's tone was absolute. I don't do charity. I don't waste time on pity projects. What I do is recognize genuine talent when it literally falls into my lap. A pause. That was a joke. The rest is completely serious. Claire's vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in a Brooklyn bookstore in front of a man she'd met less than 24 hours ago. Publishers rejected this for years. Then they were fools, or didn't understand the market, or weren't paying attention. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm emailing you the standard contract template. Read it. Have a lawyer review if you want. The advance is $18,000, half on signing, half on delivery of the completed manuscript and final illustrations. You said you have 32 pages. We'd need closer to 48 for standard picture book format. Timeline. What? Claire's brain had stopped processing coherent information somewhere around 18,000. How long to complete the additional illustrations and revisions? Sebastian spoke slowly, like explaining something to someone in shock. 6 months? 8? $18,000. Half on signing. $9,000 immediately. Enough to cover most of her grandmother's rehabilitation. The number kept bouncing around her skull, refusing to feel real. Why are you doing this? The question came out raw. You don't know me. I'm just someone who spilled champagne on you. Sebastian closed his phone. For a long moment he just looked at her, and something in his expression softened in a way that made her breath catch. Because you drew your grandmother's hands in a hospital waiting room. He said it like it explained everything. I saw your sketchbook when you grabbed your bag at the plaza, those studies of hands, the way you captured love in every line. He paused. Artists who can do that don't come along often. I'd be an idiot to let you disappear because you fell in my lap. You saw my sketchbook. You left it on the floor when you ran away. I may have looked through it before security returned it to your easel. He had the grace to look slightly apologetic. Professional curiosity. Claire didn't know whether to be mortified or flattered, settled for somewhere in between. That's kind of invasive. Completely invasive. He agreed without hesitation. Also how I knew you were the real thing. Her phone buzzed on the table. Email notification. Contract template from Hunt and Company. Subject line, The Little Creature Publishing Agreement. This was happening. This was actually happening. I'll need to read this carefully, and probably panic, and definitely call my best friend who'll tell me this is too good to be true. Claire picked up her phone with shaking hands. All reasonable responses. Sebastian stood, reaching into his wallet. He pulled out a $50 bill and left it on the table for their coffees. Read the contract. Email me questions. When you're ready to discuss terms, my office is on 47th. You'll need to come in to sign officially. He turned to leave, then paused. Claire. Yes. For what it's worth, I don't think you're someone who uses people or takes advantage. I think you're terrified and brave and carrying more weight than you should have to. His voice was gentle. Accepting help isn't the same as being weak. And this isn't help. It's good business. He left before she could respond. Claire sat in the bookstore cafe for another hour, reading the contract on her phone, texting Lily incomprehensible fragments of joy and terror, trying to make her hands stop shaking enough to hold her coffee cup. The contract was legitimate. Standard terms, nothing predatory. $18,000 advance, 8-month deadline for completion. Hunt and Company taking standard publishing rights. she'd retain illustration rights for other projects. Her phone rang. Lily's name. "Tell me you're not hallucinating." Her friend's voice vibrated with barely contained excitement. "I'm sitting in a bookstore. I have a legitimate publishing contract in my email. Sebastian Hunt wants to publish my book." Claire heard herself say the words, still not quite believing them. The same Sebastian Hunt whose suit you ruined. The very same. This is insane. This is completely insane. This is Claire, do you know what this means? That I can pay for Grandma's rehabilitation. The words came out small, hopeful. Well, yes, obviously that. But also that your dream is actually happening. The thing you've worked on for half your life. Someone saw it and said yes. Lily's voice cracked. "I'm so proud of you, I might actually cry." They stayed on the phone another 20 minutes, Lily helping Claire process the surreal turn her life had taken. When they finally hung up, Claire gathered her portfolio, carefully tucking the contract email into her favorites folder like something precious. The subway ride to Roosevelt Hospital passed in a blur. Her grandmother was sitting up when Claire arrived, attempting to eat applesauce with her right hand, the coordination still clumsy but improving. "You look different." Eleanor studied Claire's face. Something happened. Claire pulled the chair close to the bed. "Remember how I told you about falling into Sebastian Hunt's lap last night? The handsome publisher with the expensive suit. I never said he was handsome. You didn't have to. Your face did." Eleanor set down the applesauce. "What about him?" "He wants to publish my book, The Little Creature. He saw my work and he wants to publish it." Claire's voice broke on the last word. "The advance is $18,000, Grandma. Enough to cover your rehabilitation." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Her right hand reached out, trembling, and Claire took it carefully. "Your book. My book. Our book. The one you watched me work on all those years." Claire wiped her own eyes. "You always said someone would see it eventually." "I knew." Eleanor's voice was firm, despite the slur. "I always knew you had something special." They sat together in the hospital room, both crying, both laughing, the weight of impossible suddenly shifting into maybe real. Claire pulled out her phone and showed her grandmother the contract email, reading the terms aloud, making it solid and true. "When do you sign?" "Monday morning. His office on 47th Street. Claire took a shaky breath. "Grandma, what if I can't do it? What if I finish the book and it's terrible and I let everyone down?" "Then you'll have tried." Eleanor squeezed her hand. "But you won't fail. You're too stubborn, like your grandmother." The nurse came in for evening medications, and Claire stayed through visiting hours, sketching her grandmother's improved posture, the way she could lift her left arm slightly higher than yesterday. Small victories. Everything was small victories. Her phone buzzed at 8:47 p.m. Text from an unknown number. "I can't stop thinking about you. We need to talk. Tyler." Again. Different number. Same obsession. Claire deleted it, blocked the number, and pulled out the business card Sebastian had given her at the bookstore, his direct office line. For a long moment she considered texting him a professional thank you, decided against it. This was business. He'd said so himself. Mixing business with anything else would be stupid. Her phone buzzed again. Different number this time. "You can't hide forever, Claire. I found you before. I'll find you again." Her hands went cold. Tyler wasn't just sending random texts anymore. He was escalating, threatening. She blocked the number with shaking fingers and stood. "Grandma, I need to go. I'll be back tomorrow." "Are you all right?" Eleanor's sharp eyes caught the fear Claire was trying to hide. "Fine. Just tired. Long day." The lie tasted bitter. The subway ride home felt longer than usual, every man in a business coat making her pulse spike. Tyler worked in finance, wore suits, could be anywhere in Manhattan at any time. Claire made it to her apartment, locked the door, and checked all the windows before allowing herself to breathe. The business card from Sebastian lay on her desk, and she picked it up carefully. Monday morning. Hunt & Company Publishing. 10 a.m. She'd survived worse than a contract signing. She'd survived Tyler, survived losing her parents, survived 8 years of rejection letters. She could survive success. The weekend passed in a blur of nervous energy. Claire finished 2 commissioned portraits, deep-cleaned her apartment, and read the publishing contract 17 more times. Lily came over Sunday evening with Thai food and moral support. "You're going to walk in there tomorrow like you belong." Her friend pointed chopsticks for emphasis. "Because you do belong. Your art is incredible. Stop acting like you're getting charity." "I fell into his lap, Lily. That's not exactly a professional start." "So what? You could have met him at a networking event, and it would be just as valid. The lap thing is just a good story for later." Lily grinned. "Although I'm definitely telling this story at your book launch party." They stayed up too late planning futures that felt both impossible and suddenly within reach. Book tours, gallery shows, Claire's name on covers. When Lily finally left at midnight, Claire lay in bed staring at the ceiling, too wired to sleep. Her phone buzzed. 1:23 a.m. "I saw you at that gala. You looked beautiful. Remember how we used to go to events together, Tyler?" New number, same pattern. Claire blocked it without responding. She'd learned years ago that engaging only encouraged him. But her hands shook as she set the phone down, and sleep didn't come until nearly 4 a.m. Monday morning arrived cold and bright. Claire chose her outfit carefully: black slacks, cream blouse, navy blazer that Lily had helped her find at a consignment store. Professional but not trying too hard. Her portfolio bag held clean copies of all her illustration samples, organized in a leather folder that had been a graduation gift from her grandmother. Hunt and Company Publishing occupied floors 45 through 47 of a glass tower in Midtown. The lobby was all minimalist elegance: white marble chrome fixtures, receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Claire's stomach twisted with nerves as she gave her name. "Ms. Bennett, yes, Mr. Hunt is expecting you. 47th floor elevator on the right. His assistant will meet you." The elevator ride felt too short. Claire exited on 47 to find a woman in her 50s waiting, kind eyes behind stylish glasses. "Claire Bennett, I'm Margaret Sebastian's executive assistant. Right this way, please." The hallway walls displayed framed book covers, dozens of titles Claire recognized, award winners and bestsellers. Hunt and Company published serious literary fiction alongside stunning illustrated works. Being here felt surreal. Margaret led her to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Sebastian stood at the window phone to his ear, speaking in rapid-fire sentences about distribution and marketing. He turned when they entered, holding up one finger in apology. "I understand the concern, but the answer is still no. We're not rushing publication to hit Christmas. Quality over deadline." He listened for another moment. "Then we push to spring. End of discussion." He hung up and turned his full attention to Claire. "Good morning. Thank you for being punctual." "Good morning." Claire's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Coffee, water? Margaret makes excellent coffee if you're interested." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Coffee would be great, thank you." Margaret disappeared. Sebastian sat behind his desk, pulling up something on his computer. Today's suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably also worth thousands. But his tie was slightly loosened, and there was a coffee stain on his shirt cuff that made him seem more human. "I had legal review your contract over the weekend. Made a few modifications based on standard first-time author agreements." He turned the screen toward her. "The advance remains $18,000. Half on signing today, half on completed delivery. We've added a clause for additional compensation if the book hits certain sales benchmarks." Claire leaned forward, reading the modifications. Everything seemed straightforward, generous even. "This is very fair. I told you, this is good business, not charity." Sebastian pulled up another document. "I also took the liberty of drafting a preliminary marketing timeline. Obviously subject to change, but I wanted you to see how serious we are about this project." The timeline showed an 8-month production schedule, release planned for the following fall. School and library marketing. Advance reader copies sent to children's lit influencers. Potential author events at independent bookstores. "This is real." Claire heard herself say it out loud. "This is actually real. Did you think I was joking? I thought maybe I'd wake up and discover Friday night was an elaborate stress dream." She looked up from the screen. "Publishing CEOs don't usually offer contracts to people who ruin their suits." Sebastian's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "I'm not usual." Margaret returned with coffee, perfect temperature, exactly the right amount of cream without asking. Claire wrapped her hands around the cup, grateful for something to hold. "If you're comfortable with the terms, we can execute the contract now. I'll have accounting wire the first payment this afternoon." Sebastian pulled out a pen, expensive, heavy, the kind that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Claire's hands shook as she took it. 8 months of work ahead, $18,000. Her grandmother's rehabilitation secured, her dream becoming real. She signed on all the designated lines, her signature looking small and uncertain next to Sebastian's bold scrawl. "Welcome to Hunt and Company, Miss Bennett." Sebastian stood extending his hand across the desk. Claire shook at his palm, warm and firm. "Thank you. For the chance. For believing—" "Stop." He cut her off gently. "You earned this. Your talent earned this. I'm just smart enough to recognize it." The door burst open without warning. A man strode in, tall, similar build to Sebastian, but with lighter hair and an easy smile that was the complete opposite of Sebastian's careful reserve. "Seb, I need you to look at the Quinn manuscript before I—" He stopped mid-sentence, seeing Claire. His eyes widened. "Oh, you're the lap girl." Claire felt all the blood drain from her face. Sebastian closed his eyes for a long second, gathering visible patience. "Marcus, don't you have literally anything else to do right now?" The man Marcus grinned wider. "I could, but meeting the woman who made my brother smile for the first time in years seems more important." "I didn't smile." Sebastian's voice was flat. "You smiled." Marcus turned to Claire, extending his hand. "Marcus Hunt, older brother, COO, and the reason this company actually functions. You must be Claire Bennett." She shook his hand on autopilot, still processing the lap girl comment. Sebastian told you." "Sebastian told me nothing, but he came home Friday night with champagne on a $4,000 suit and refused to explain, which told me everything." Marcus threw himself into the other chair uninvited. "Plus I have spies." "Well, Margaret, same thing. I'm regretting not firing you years ago." Sebastian massaged his temples. "You can't fire me. I own 30% of the company." Marcus turned back to Claire, eyes kind despite the teasing. "Welcome to Hunt & Co., and welcome to the chaos that is my family. Speaking of which, grandmother wants to meet you." Claire blinked. "Your grandmother wants to meet all new authors." Sebastian cut in, shooting his brother a look that promised murder. "It's a formality, completely optional." "Completely mandatory," Marcus corrected cheerfully. "Eleanor Hunt, age 85, matriarch of the Hunt Empire, and the woman who actually built this company. She insists on meeting everyone who signs with us." He stood still, grinning. "Lunch next Sunday at the estate. Sebastian will drive you. It's in Connecticut, about 90 minutes north." "Marcus," Sebastian's voice carried warning. "What?" "It's tradition. You know how grandmother gets about tradition." Marcus headed for the door, then paused. "Also, for what it's worth, I looked at your portfolio samples. You're the real deal. Glad you're joining us." He left before either of them could respond. Claire sat in the sudden silence, trying to process the last 5 minutes. "I apologize for my brother." Sebastian's tone was carefully controlled. He has no sense of professional boundaries. He seems enthusiastic. "He's a menace." Sebastian pulled his laptop back around. "The lunch invitation is genuine, though. My grandmother does like to meet new authors, but it's absolutely optional if you're not comfortable." Claire thought about her own grandmother in the hospital, fighting every day to recover mobility. The idea of another fierce elderly woman who'd built something meaningful felt both terrifying and oddly comforting. "Next Sunday works." Sebastian looked up sharply. You're sure? Unless it's inappropriate, I don't want to. It's not inappropriate. Just, grandmother can be intense. She asks pointed questions, tests people. He paused. She'll probably interrogate you about your intentions. My intentions regarding what? Something flickered across Sebastian's expression too quickly to read. Your commitment to the book, your artistic vision, whether you're serious about this career. He stood gathering papers. I'll pick you up Sunday at 10. Lunch is at noon, but the drive takes time. They exchanged numbers, Claire's fingers fumbling slightly as she saved his contact. Her phone buzzed immediately with a calendar invite, Sunday 10 a.m. pickup for Hunt Estate lunch. Margaret appeared in the doorway. Your 11 o'clock is here, Mr. Hunt. Claire stood quickly gathering her bag. I should go. Thank you again. For everything. Sebastian walked her to the door, his hand briefly touching her lower back in a gesture that felt both professional and oddly intimate. Check your email this afternoon, the contract copy and payment confirmation. She made it to the elevator before her knees went weak. Leaned against the wall during the descent, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 72 hours. Her phone buzzed. Text from Lily. How'd it go? Claire typed back with shaking hands. I signed. Contract is real. First payment this afternoon. Also invited to lunch with his grandmother next Sunday. 3 dots appeared, immediately disappeared, reappeared. His grandmother. Claire, this is a date. It's not a date. It's a professional family tradition. Sure. And you accidentally fell into his lap. Nothing about this is coincidence. Claire pocketed her phone, refusing to engage with Lily's romantic conspiracy theories. This was business. Sebastian had been absolutely clear about that. The subway ride to Brooklyn felt surreal. She stopped at Roosevelt Hospital on the way home, finding her grandmother awake and working with a physical therapist. Look. Eleanor lifted her left arm 6 inches off the bed, trembling with effort. I did this 3 times today. Claire's eyes burned. Grandma, that's amazing. The doctor says another 2 weeks here, then I can move to the rehabilitation facility. Eleanor's speech was clearer today, words less slurred. If we can arrange payment. We can. Claire pulled out her phone, showing the contract confirmation email that had arrived during her subway ride. The first payment clears this afternoon, $9,000. Enough to get you started. Eleanor's tears came fast. Claire held her carefully, both of them crying in the hospital room, the physical therapist politely excusing herself. Your book. Eleanor kept saying it. Your beautiful book. They spent the afternoon together, Claire sketching while her grandmother dozed, both of them basking in the unfamiliar feeling of hope. Claire's phone buzzed at 4:17 p.m. Bank notification. Deposit of $9,000 received, available immediately. She stared at the screen, the numbers refusing to feel real. $9,000. More money than she'd ever had in her account at one time. Another text came through. Unknown number. Heard you got a book deal. Congratulations. We should celebrate. For old time's sake. Tyler. How did he know about the book deal? How did he always know everything? Claire blocked the number with fingers gone cold. She'd changed her social media to private months ago, didn't post about her work publicly, but Tyler always found out somehow. Always found her. Her hands shook as she pulled up Sebastian's contact, typed out a message, deleted it, typed again. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't let you down. His response came 30 seconds later. I know you won't. See you Sunday. S.H. Those 2 letters, S.H., felt oddly personal, like he signed his casual messages differently than his professional emails. Claire pocketed her phone and went back to sketching her grandmother, pushing thoughts of Tyler and Sunday lunches and publishing CEOs into a mental box labeled Deal with Later. The week passed in a blur. Claire finished 3 commissioned portraits, paid her rent 2 weeks early, and scheduled her grandmother's transfer to the rehabilitation facility. Each night brought new texts from Tyler, different numbers, same obsessive pattern. She blocked them all, documenting each one in a folder her friend who worked in law enforcement had suggested. Saturday night, Lily came over to help Claire pick an outfit for Sunday's lunch. "It's not a date," Claire repeated for the 15th time. "You're meeting his grandmother at the family estate. That's literally the definition of serious relationship milestone." Lily held up a navy dress. "This one. Professional but pretty." "I'm meeting his grandmother because she meets all new authors. Marcus said it's tradition." "Marcus also called you the lap girl and said Sebastian smiled for the first time in years. Connect the dots, Claire." Claire grabbed the dress, refusing to engage. "It's a professional courtesy, nothing more." Sunday morning arrived with October sunshine and crisp air. Claire dressed carefully, the navy dress fitting perfectly, her hair cooperating for once in a soft braid. She was standing outside her building at 9:58 a.m. when a black SUV pulled up. Sebastian got out and Claire's breath caught. Jeans, a dark green sweater, brown leather jacket. Casual in a way that made him look younger, more approachable, more dangerous to her carefully maintained professional boundaries. "Good morning." He held the passenger door open. "Ready to face the Hunt family inquisition?" Claire slid into the car, leather seats and new car smell surrounding her. "Should I be nervous?" "Terrified, probably." He closed her door and rounded to the driver's side. "But my grandmother likes people who stand up for themselves. Just be honest. She can smell bullshit from 3 miles away." They pulled into traffic heading north out of Manhattan. Claire watched the city give way to suburbs, then to the rolling hills of Connecticut countryside. "Tell me about your grandmother." She broke the comfortable silence. Marcus made her sound formidable. "She is." Sebastian's hands moved easily on the steering wheel. "Built Hunt and Company from nothing after my grandfather died. She was 32, had 2 kids, and everyone told her to sell the company. She told them all to go to hell and proceeded to build it into what it is today. She sounds incredible. She's a nightmare when crossed and the warmest person alive when she loves you." His voice softened. "After my mother died, she basically raised Marcus and me, taught us everything about books and business and what matters." Claire heard the grief underneath his words. "How old were you?" 8. Marcus was 10. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. "Books became my escape. Stories where kids lost parents and survived anyway, found families in unexpected places." The vulnerability in his confession made Claire's chest ache. "Is that why you wanted to publish The Little Creature?" "Partly, but mostly because it's objectively brilliant and children need it." He glanced at her briefly. "How's your grandmother's recovery going?" "Better every day. She moved to the rehabilitation facility on Wednesday. The therapists are optimistic about her regaining most of her mobility." Claire smiled. "She's stubborn, determined to walk at my book launch." "When's the launch?" "You're the publisher. Don't you decide that—" "I'm asking what you want." The question caught her off guard. "I want it to be real. I want kids to find it in libraries and bookstores. I want it to help someone the way books helped me when I was lost." Sebastian's expression shifted, something warm and approving crossing his features. "Then that's what we'll do." The Hunt estate appeared around a curve, a Georgian mansion set among rolling lawns and autumn trees. The house itself looked like something from a period drama, all white columns and elegant proportions. Claire's hands went clammy. "This is where you grew up?" "Weekends and summers. We had an apartment in the city during the week." Sebastian pulled around a circular drive. "Try not to judge me too harshly for the privilege." "I wasn't." "Yes, you were. It's okay. It's objectively ridiculous." He parked and came around to open her door. "Ready?" Claire stepped out into crisp autumn air, the smell of fallen leaves and wood smoke greeting her. The front door opened before they reached it, Marcus appearing with a grin. "She's been waiting by the window for 20 minutes. You're officially late." "We're 10 minutes early." Sebastian checked his watch. "Which makes you late by grandmother's standards." Marcus's attention shifted to Claire. "You look terrified. Good instincts. Come on, let's get this over with." They entered a foyer that probably cost more than Claire's entire apartment building. Marble floors, crystal chandelier oil paintings that looked museum-worthy. Marcus led them down a hallway lined with bookshelves to a library that took Claire's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling books on every wall, leather reading chairs positioned near a massive fireplace, Persian rugs, windows overlooking the grounds, and in a high-backed chair near the fire sat a woman who could only be Eleanor Hunt. 85 years old, with impeccable posture, sharp dark eyes and silver hair pulled into an elegant bun. She wore a cashmere sweater and pearls, studying Claire with the kind of attention that suggested she could see straight through to bone. "So," her voice carried complete authority despite her age, "you're the young woman who fell into my grandson's lap." Claire's throat went completely dry. Sebastian's hand touched her lower back briefly, steadying. "That was an accident, Mrs. Hunt. A genuine mortifying accident." Eleanor's eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. "I'm sure it was, dear. Although my grandson came home that evening with champagne staining a suit he'd owned for exactly 3 weeks. He doesn't usually inspire such dramatic entrances." "Grandmother," Sebastian's voice carried warning, "we agreed you'd be welcoming." "I am welcoming. I'm simply establishing facts." Eleanor gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit, Claire Bennett. Tell me about your family." Claire sat hyper-aware of Sebastian settling into the chair beside her, Marcus leaning against the bookshelf with barely concealed amusement. "My parents died when I was 8. Car accident. My grandmother Eleanor raised me after that." Something shifted in Eleanor Hunt's expression. "Your grandmother's name is Eleanor?" "Yes, ma'am. Eleanor Bennett. She's currently in rehabilitation after a stroke 3 weeks ago." "I'm sorry to hear that." The words carried genuine warmth. "Recovery prognosis?" "Good if she continues with intensive therapy. The doctors are optimistic." Claire forced her spine straight, refusing to show how much this interrogation unnerved her. Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "And this book contract with my grandson, coincidental timing or convenient solution to medical expenses?" The accusation hung in the air. Marcus straightened slightly, tension rippling through the room. Sebastian's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Claire found her voice. "Both, actually." She met Eleanor's eyes directly. "I've worked on the little creature for 13 years, sent it to 47 publishers who rejected it without reading past my query letter. Your grandson saw 8 pages and recognized what others missed. The timing saved my grandmother's life, but I earned the contract on merit." Silence stretched long enough to make Claire's pulse hammer. Then Eleanor Hunt smiled, genuine, reaching her eyes. "Good. I despise people who deflect or make excuses." She turned to Sebastian. "You didn't mention she had backbone." "I mentioned she called me insufferably arrogant within 10 minutes of meeting." Sebastian's mouth curved slightly. "Seemed self-evident." "You are insufferably arrogant." Eleanor turned back to Claire. "Now tell me why illustration? What makes you draw instead of photograph or paint or any other medium?" Claire relaxed fractionally on familiar ground. "Because drawings leave room for imagination. A photograph captures everything, locks it into one truth. But an illustration suggests, shows the shape of something while letting the viewer fill in their own details. Children especially need that space. They need to see themselves in the creature, whatever that means for them." Eleanor leaned forward. "And what does the creature mean for you?" The question cut deeper than surface-level professional inquiry. Claire felt Sebastian's attention sharpen beside her, Marcus watching with new interest. "She's every part of myself I learned to hide, every fear that I wasn't enough, every moment I made myself smaller to fit someone else's expectations." Claire's voice steadied. "And she's the hope that maybe being fully seen won't destroy me after all." The library fell quiet except for the fire crackling. Eleanor studied Claire for another long moment, then nodded once decisively. "You'll do. Sebastian, she stays for lunch." Eleanor stood with surprising grace for 85. "Claire, walk with me. I want to show you the gardens before we eat." Sebastian stood as well. "Grandmother, it's 40 degrees outside." "Then we'll walk quickly. Come along, dear." Eleanor offered Claire her arm. Claire rose, shooting Sebastian a panicked look. He gave a small shrug that communicated both sympathy and inevitability. She took Eleanor's arm carefully, letting the older woman set their pace out of the library and through French doors to a terrace. The garden stretched in every direction, late October flowers still blooming despite the cold. Eleanor moved along a gravel path, her steps sure despite her age. "My late husband planted these roses 60 years ago," she gestured to dormant bushes. "Everyone said they were too delicate for Connecticut winters. He proved them wrong through sheer stubbornness. They must be beautiful in summer. Magnificent. Rather like good books, they take time, proper care, and refusing to listen to people who say something won't survive." Eleanor paused by a stone bench. "Sebastian doesn't bring women here, Claire. In fact, he's brought exactly one person to meet me in the 8 years since his last relationship ended." Claire's stomach flipped. "Mrs. Hunt, this is just a professional courtesy. Your grandson made that very clear." "What my grandson says and what he feels are often wildly different things." Eleanor's eyes held knowing warmth. "He's been alone since Adriana. 3 years engaged to a woman who wanted the Hunt name and money, nothing more. When she left him for someone wealthier, he closed off completely." "I'm sorry, but I don't think—" "You make him laugh, child. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Eleanor squeezed Claire's arm gently. "I'm not pushing anything. I'm simply saying stay open to unexpected blessings, even when they arrive wrapped in champagne-stained suits." The echo of her own grandmother's words made Claire's breath catch. Eleanor smiled, reading her expression accurately. "Your grandmother sounds wise. I'd like to meet her someday." She turned back toward the house. "Now let's eat before Marcus devours everything. He has no self-control around my cook's pot roast." Lunch was served in a formal dining room that somehow felt warm despite the crystal and fine china. Marcus and his wife Diane had arrived with their children Emma 7 and Noah 5. The kids transformed the elegant space into cheerful chaos, Noah spilling milk while Emma peppered Claire with questions about drawing. "Can you draw me a princess?" Emma's eyes went wide with hope. Claire pulled a small sketch pad from her bag. She never went anywhere without one. "What kind of princess?" "One with a sword and a dragon friend. And she wears pants because dresses are impractical for adventures." Diane laughed. "She gets that from her father. Marcus refuses to read her any traditional princess stories." Claire sketched quickly, the princess taking shape with practical braids and determined expression. Emma watched with rapt attention Noah climbing into the chair beside her to see better. "You're really good." Noah's voice held awe. "Can you teach me? I can show you some basics if your parents don't mind." Sebastian watched from across the table, something soft in his expression that made Claire's pulse stutter. Their eyes met and heat flooded her face. She looked away quickly, focusing on adding a small dragon to Emma's shoulder. The pot roast arrived with roasted potatoes, carrots, and Yorkshire pudding. Eleanor said grace, her voice carrying through the room. "We're grateful for family, for health, for unexpected guests who remind us that the best things often arrive unplanned." Claire kept her head bowed, hyper-aware of Sebastian's presence 3 feet away, Eleanor's meaningful glances, the warmth of being included in something she'd never experienced. Real family dinner with multiple generations, and laughter and food that tasted like love. After lunch, Marcus cornered Sebastian in the hallway, while Claire helped Diane clear plates. "You're falling for her." Marcus kept his voice low but certain. Sebastian didn't pretend to misunderstand. "It's complicated. It's only complicated because you're making it complicated. She's talented kind, obviously into you. She's a client. It's unprofessional. The contract is signed. Her advance is paid. The professional barrier is minimal." Marcus studied his brother's face. "You haven't looked at anyone like that since Adriana destroyed you. Don't let fear keep you from something real." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "I barely know her." "You knew enough to offer her a contract after seeing 8 pages. You knew enough to bring her here to meet grandmother, which you've never done with any author." Marcus gripped Sebastian's shoulder. "She's not Adriana. Stop punishing yourself." In the kitchen, Diane was conducting her own interrogation. "Sebastian seems different around you, lighter somehow." Claire nearly dropped the plate she was rinsing. "We just met a week ago. This is purely professional." Professional. Diane's tone suggested she believed that about as much as she believed in Santa Claus. "Is that why he's been staring at you through 3 courses with the expression of a man trying to solve a particularly compelling puzzle? He's probably wondering if I'm going to spill something else on him. Or he's wondering how someone he just met already feels essential." Diane touched Claire's arm gently. "For what it's worth, I think you're exactly what he needs. Someone who sees the person instead of the bank account." The afternoon dissolved into easy warmth. Sebastian showed Claire his childhood room, now a guest space, but still holding faded posters of bands she recognized, bookshelves crammed with fantasy novels and poetry collections. Evidence of the person he'd been before loss and responsibility reshaped him. "I lived in these stories after my mother died." Sebastian pulled out a worn copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Lucy's courage, Edmund's redemption, the idea that broken things could be made whole. Claire touched the book's spine carefully. "That's why you wanted to publish The Little Creature, isn't it? Not just because it's good, because you understand what it means to need that story." His eyes met hers unguarded for once. Yes. The single word carried weight beyond its syllables. They stood in his childhood room, surrounded by evidence of who he'd been and become, and something shifted between them. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of trust. Eleanor appeared in the doorway. "Sebastian, your Aunt Victoria just called. She's arriving in 20 minutes and insists on meeting Claire." Sebastian's expression shuddered. "That's not necessary. She's already on her way. You know how she is about new authors." Eleanor's tone suggested this was non-negotiable. The drive back to the city happened in comfortable silence until Sebastian pulled up outside Claire's building. October dusk painted Brooklyn in gold and shadow. "Thank you for today." Claire gathered her bag. "Your family is wonderful. They're overwhelming and intrusive and have no concept of boundaries." Sebastian's mouth curved slightly. "But yes, they're wonderful." Claire's hand was on the door handle when his voice stopped her. "Claire." She turned back. "My Aunt Victoria will likely call you this week. She's protective. Runs the Hunt Foundation, manages charitable giving, and considers herself the family guardian against gold diggers and opportunists." "Should I be worried?" "Just be yourself. She can smell insincerity from across Manhattan." He paused. "And for what it's worth, I don't think you're either of those things. In case that matters." Claire's throat went tight. "It matters." She made it inside before letting herself process the day. The interrogation, Eleanor's warmth, the children's laughter, Sebastian's childhood room, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Saw you getting out of that expensive car, moving up in the world, aren't you?" How long before he figures out what you really are? Tyler. Always Tyler. Claire blocked the number with shaking hands and went to visit her grandmother at the rehabilitation facility. Eleanor Bennett was walking with a walker, slow but determined, her left side gaining strength daily. "How was lunch with the publishing family?" Her grandmother's speech had improved significantly, words coming easier now. "Terrifying and wonderful." Claire settled into the visitor's chair. "His grandmother is 85 and fierce and reminded me so much of you." "Did you like him?" "The grandson." Heat flooded Claire's face. "Grandma." "That's a yes." Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "Good. You deserve someone who sees you clearly." They spent an hour together, Claire sketching while her grandmother practiced hand exercises. The physical therapist praised Eleanor's progress. Walking unassisted might be possible within 6 weeks. November arrived with early cold and the reality of finishing The Little Creature. Claire worked obsessively, adding the 16 additional pages Hunt and Company needed, refining existing illustrations until her eyes blurred. Sebastian had scheduled bi-weekly meetings to review progress, but those sessions inevitably stretched into conversations about books and art and the terrifying vulnerability of creating something that mattered. The third meeting, Sebastian brought coffee from the bakery near her apartment, oat milk latte, with extra foam, exactly how she preferred it. "How did you know?" Claire accepted the cup, warmth spreading through her fingers. "I pay attention." 4 words that shouldn't have meant so much, but they did. They spread the new illustrations across his conference table, Sebastian studying each page with methodical focus. His questions pushed her, challenged her, made the work better. "This shadow here," he pointed to the creature's shell. "It reads as protective. But shouldn't it feel more like prison?" Claire considered seeing the image through fresh eyes. "You're right. The shadow should trap, not shield. Not necessarily trap, just constrict. Suggest what she's giving up by hiding." She sketched modifications in the margins, Sebastian watching her hands move with charcoal. When she glanced up, his expression had softened into something dangerously close to admiration. "What? You transform ideas into images in real time. It's remarkable. It's just practice. It's talent. Don't diminish it." His voice carried unexpected intensity. "You have a gift, Claire. Own it." The words settled into her chest, taking root somewhere deeper than professional validation. Their 5th meeting ran late into evening. Sebastian ordered Thai food, and they ate at his conference table while debating the emotional arc of pages 32 through 40. Claire used her fork to emphasize a point about color theory, accidentally flinging pad thai across the table. Sebastian looked at the noodles decorating his shirt, then at Claire's mortified expression, and started laughing. Real laughter, uncontrolled and infectious. Claire joined him, both of them helpless with it. "I'm so sorry." She grabbed napkins. "I have a problem with food projectiles, apparently." First champagne, now noodles. Sebastian wiped his shirt futilely. "I'm seeing a pattern. I promise I'm not doing this deliberately." "I know." His eyes held warmth and something else, something that made breathing difficult. "If you were, you'd be much better at it." The moment stretched, laughter fading into awareness. They were alone in his office at 8 p.m., close enough that Claire could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, smell his cologne mixing with Thai basil. Sebastian cleared his throat, stepping back. "I should drive you home. It's late." In the car, silence felt different. Charged. Claire watched Manhattan lights blur past, hyper-aware of Sebastian's hands on the steering wheel, the way he'd adjusted the seat heater for her without asking. He pulled up outside her building. "Same time Thursday. I'll try not to assault you with any food items." "I appreciate the effort." His smile reached his eyes. "Claire." "Yes." "You're—" He stopped, seemed to reconsider. "Good night." She made it upstairs before texting Lily. "I think I'm in trouble." The response came immediately. "Good trouble or bad trouble, the kind where I can't stop thinking about my publisher, and this is absolutely, definitely unprofessional." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Oh, honey, you're so screwed, in the best way." December brought Thanksgiving planning. Marcus insisted Claire join the family celebration at the estate, and Sebastian forwarded the invitation with a note. "My brother is relentless. You're under no obligation. But if you'd like to come, you're welcome. S.H." Claire stared at the invitation for 20 minutes before responding. "I'd love to. Thank you. C.B." She brought her grandmother, who'd progressed to walking with just a cane. Eleanor Bennett and Eleanor Hunt bonded immediately over shared names and similar life philosophies. They sat together by the fire while Claire helped in the kitchen, Diane teaching her the Hunt family stuffing recipe. The feast was everything Thanksgiving should be. Turkey so perfectly roasted it fell off the bone. Stuffing rich with sage and butter. Sweet potato casserole with pecans. Green bean casserole. Cranberry sauce, both canned and homemade, because Marcus insisted on tradition while Diane demanded fresh. Dinner rolls that Claire ate 3 of because they dissolved on her tongue. Eleanor Hunt said grace, her voice carrying through the dining room. "We give thanks for health restored, for family growing, for unexpected guests who remind us that home is made by who gathers, not by blood alone." Claire's eyes burned. Across the table, Sebastian met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. After dinner, he found her on the terrace, wrapped in a borrowed coat against the cold. "You looked overwhelmed in there." He stood beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt his warmth. "Good, overwhelmed. Your family is—" She searched for words. "They make me feel like I belong. Like I'm not just the girl who fell in your lap, but someone worth knowing." "You are worth knowing." Sebastian's voice dropped low. That was never in question. Claire turned to face him fully. The terrace lights cast his features in gold and shadow, highlighting the strength of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. "Sebastian, I know this is complicated." He cut her off gently. "You're my author. There are professional boundaries, but I can't pretend I don't look forward to our meetings for reasons that have nothing to do with publishing." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "What kind of reasons?" "The kind where I spend Thursday evenings wondering what you'll say that makes me see the world differently. Where I bring you coffee because watching you wrap your hands around the cup and smile feels essential to my day." He took a breath. "The kind where I'm falling for you and trying very hard not to because it's inconvenient and inappropriate and—" Claire kissed him, stepped forward and pressed her lips to his, cutting off his words with action. For half a second he froze in surprise. Then his hands came up, framing her face, and he kissed her back with weeks of restrained want. His mouth was warm and sure tasting like pumpkin pie and coffee. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and devastating competence. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. That was— He seemed to have lost words. "Inconvenient and inappropriate." Claire's voice shook slightly. "Perfect." He corrected, thumb stroking her cheek. "Absolutely perfect." They stood together in the cold, wrapped in each other, until Marcus's voice carried through the French doors. "If you two are done making out on the terrace, there's pie." Sebastian groaned. Claire laughed against his shoulder, feeling lighter than she had in years. Inside, the family pretended not to notice their flushed faces and linked hands. Both grandmothers exchanged satisfied looks. Emma demanded another drawing. Noah fell asleep against Claire's side after eating too much pie. Later, Sebastian drove Claire and her grandmother back to the city. Eleanor Bennett dozed in the back seat while Claire sat beside Sebastian, their fingers intertwined on the console. "This is really happening." Claire needed confirmation, needed to hear him say it. "This is really happening." Sebastian glanced at her, smiling. "Unless you've reconsidered." "Not even a little bit." They kissed again outside Claire's building, gentle and unhurried this time. Promise instead of desperation. The next week brought meetings that became dates disguised as work sessions, coffee that turned into dinner, conversations that stretched until midnight. Sebastian was careful, respectful, never pushing for more than Claire offered. But the chemistry between them burned steady and sure. Claire finished the manuscript just before Christmas. All 48 pages, illustrations refined until they shone. She delivered the final files on December 23rd, Sebastian reviewing each page with the same methodical attention he'd always shown. "It's perfect." He looked up, eyes shining. "Claire, this is going to change lives." "You really think so?" "I know so." He came around the desk, pulling her into his arms. "I'm so proud of you." They'd kept the relationship quiet, not secret, but private. Work was work. Personal was personal. But standing in his office with the completed manuscript between them, professional and personal, merged into something singular and true. "I love you." The words fell from Claire's lips, unstoppable and terrifying. Sebastian went very still. Then his mouth curved into the smile she'd come to crave. "I've loved you since you called me insufferably arrogant with champagne dripping down my suit." He kissed her softly. "Maybe even since the moment you fell into my lap and looked at me like I was the most inconvenient thing that ever happened to you." Claire laughed against his mouth. "You were the most inconvenient thing. You still are." Good. I'd hate to become predictable. Christmas Eve arrived with snow and the Hunt family tradition of dinner at the estate. Claire stood in Sebastian's childhood room, adjusting the emerald dress Lily had insisted she buy, nerves making her hands shake. Sebastian appeared in the doorway, devastating in a dark suit. "You're beautiful." The words held reverence. "You're obligated to say that. Boyfriend bias. I'm constitutionally incapable of lying. Ask anyone." He crossed to her, pulling a small, wrapped box from his pocket. "I have something for you." Claire's breath caught. "Sebastian, we said no gifts. Open it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, the charm a tiny illustrated creature emerging from its shell. Claire's eyes filled. "It's the little creature. You had this made? Your illustrations deserve to exist beyond pages." He fastened it around her wrist carefully. "And I wanted you to remember, you're brave enough to be fully seen." She kissed him, then slow and deep gratitude and love and promise all tangled together. Downstairs the family had gathered, but when Victoria Hunt arrived, Sebastian's aunt, the woman he'd warned Claire about the warmth in the room, shifted subtly. Victoria was elegant, sharp-eyed, assessing. She greeted Claire with polite distance. "So, you're the illustrator my nephew signed. Congratulations on the contract." "Thank you, Mrs. Hunt. Please call me Victoria." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sebastian, might I speak with you privately?" They disappeared into the library. Claire tried to focus on conversation with Marcus and Diane, but anxiety crawled up her spine. In the library, Victoria wasted no time. "Are you sleeping with her?" Sebastian's jaw tightened. "That's inappropriate. You're my nephew. Nothing about your well-being is inappropriate." Victoria's voice sharpened. "I watched Adriana destroy you. I won't watch it happen again. Claire is nothing like Adriana. Struggling artist lands major book deal in publisher's heart. It's convenient, Sebastian. Too convenient. She didn't know who I was when we met." His voice went cold. "And the contract was signed before anything personal developed." "Are you certain? Or did she calculate that falling into your lap would intrigue you enough to review her work?" The accusation hung between them, poisonous and ugly. Sebastian's voice dropped to dangerous quiet. "Get out." Victoria's eyes widened. "Sebastian, you've crossed a line. Claire is the most genuine person I've met in years. If you can't see that we have nothing further to discuss." He opened the library door, holding it. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Victoria." She left without another word. Sebastian stood in the doorway, hands shaking with suppressed rage. Eleanor appeared beside him. "She's frightened, dear, not malicious. She accused Claire of being a gold digger. Because she loves you and Adriana left scars." Eleanor squeezed his arm. "Give her time. She'll come around when she sees what I see, that Claire makes you whole again." But the damage was done. The evening felt strained, artificial cheer covering tension. Claire knew something had happened, saw it in Sebastian's rigid posture, the way he held her hand too tightly. In the car later she asked, "What did your aunt say?" Sebastian's hands gripped the steering wheel. "Nothing that matters." "Sebastian." She touched his arm. "Tell me." The truth spilled out. Victoria's accusations, her implications, her fears. Each word landed like a blow. "She thinks I'm using you." Claire heard herself say it flatly. "For money. For the book deal." "She's wrong. But other people will think it too, won't they?" The reality crystallized, sharp and cutting. Publishing CEO dates his newly signed author. "It looks like exactly what your aunt thinks it is." "I don't care what people think." "But I do." Claire's voice broke. "I care that people will look at my success and assume I slept my way into it, that every good review will come with whispers about who I'm sleeping with." Sebastian pulled the car to the curb, turning to face her fully. "Then we weather it. Together." "How? How do we weather everyone thinking I'm exactly what your aunt accused me of being?" "By knowing the truth. by not letting their poison touch what we have. But doubt had planted itself vicious and growing. Claire thought of Tyler's texts, his implications that she was chasing wealth, Victoria's accusations, the inevitable gossip when people learned about their relationship. Maybe we should wait. The words tasted like ash. Until after the book launches, until I've proven the work stands alone. Sebastian's face went pale. You want to break up? I want to protect both of us. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I want my success to be mine, and I want you without the shadow of people thinking I traded my body for a book deal. Claire, please. She couldn't look at him. Just, please take me home. The drive back to Brooklyn happened in wretched silence. When he pulled up outside her building, Claire fumbled with the door handle. Sebastian's voice stopped her. I love you. That doesn't change based on timing or other people's opinions. I love you too. The words broke. That's why I'm doing this. She made it inside before collapsing sobs tearing through her chest. The bracelet on her wrist caught light, the little creature emerging brave enough to be seen, but Claire closed the door and let fear win. Christmas passed in miserable silence. Claire threw herself into final manuscript revisions that didn't need revising, avoiding Sebastian's calls, ignoring the text that came with decreasing frequency until they stopped entirely. The bracelet stayed on her wrist. She couldn't bring herself to remove it, even when the tiny creature mocked her cowardice. January arrived brutal and cold. Claire's phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Book launch scheduled March 15th. 2.5 months until the little creature hit shelves. 2.5 months of promotional appearances and interviews and inevitable questions about how she'd landed such a prestigious contract. Her grandmother noticed the change immediately during their weekly dinner at the rehabilitation facility. You ended it with him. Eleanor Bennett's recovery had progressed remarkably. She walked unassisted, now speech perfectly clear. It was the right thing to do. For whom? Because you look miserable, and according to Diane Hunt, so does Sebastian. Eleanor set down her fork with deliberate precision. What happened? The story spilled out. Victoria's accusations, the fear of gossip, the need to prove herself independent of Sebastian's influence. So, you're protecting your pride at the expense of your happiness. Eleanor's tone carried disappointment. I raised you braver than this. You raised me to stand on my own. I raised you to know the difference between independence and isolation. Eleanor reached across the table, gripping Claire's hand. That young man loves you. You love him. Everything else is noise. The noise matters when it destroys my credibility. Your work destroys the noise. Let the book speak for itself, but don't punish Sebastian for other people's cruelty. Eleanor's eyes softened. I didn't survive a stroke and fight my way back to walking so I could watch you throw away love out of fear. The words settled heavy in Claire's chest, but she couldn't seem to move past the paralysis that had taken root. Hunt and Company scheduled a marketing meeting for mid-January. Claire arrived at the office building with her stomach in knots, hoping desperately that Sebastian wouldn't attend. Margaret met her in the lobby with professional warmth. Conference room C, third door on the left. Mr. Hunt will join shortly. Of course he would. Claire forced herself down the hallway, each step requiring conscious effort. Sebastian stood at the conference room window when she entered, his back to the door. He'd lost weight. She could see it in the sharper angle of his shoulders, the way his suit jacket hung slightly loose. When he turned, the shadows under his eyes confirmed what Diane had told her grandmother. Claire. Her name came out rough, like he hadn't said it aloud in weeks. Sebastian. She clutched her portfolio bag, needing something to hold. I didn't realize you'd be in this meeting. It's my company. Where else would I be? No accusation in his tone, just exhausted resignation. The marketing team arrived, saving them from further conversation. For 90 minutes, they discussed launch strategy, blog tours, advance reader copies, bookstore appearances. Claire took notes mechanically, hyper-aware of Sebastian's presence across the table, the careful way he avoided looking directly at her. When the meeting ended, Sebastian gathered his materials quickly. "Ms. Bennett, if you have questions about the marketing plan, Margaret can address them. I have another appointment." The formal distance hurt worse than anger would have. Claire watched him leave, her chest hollow. Lily found her that evening sitting on her apartment floor, surrounded by illustration supplies she couldn't bring herself to touch. "You look like death." Her friend settled beside her without waiting for invitation. "I feel like death." "Then fix it. Call him. Tell him you made a mistake." "I can't." Claire's voice broke. "Everyone will think. Who cares what everyone thinks?" Lily's exasperation finally broke through. "You're so busy protecting yourself from potential criticism that you're guaranteeing your own misery. That's not brave, Claire. That's just sad." The harsh truth landed like a physical blow, but Claire still couldn't seem to reach for her phone, couldn't find words that would undo the damage she'd caused. February brought advanced reader copies of The Little Creature. Claire held the first finished copy with shaking hands, her illustrations transformed into a real book with her name on the cover. Hunt and Company had done beautiful work. The paper quality, the color reproduction, the binding, all perfect. She texted Sebastian a professional thank you. His response came 3 hours later. "The credit is yours. Congratulations on excellent work. S.H." Those formal initials felt like a door closing. Reviews started appearing in trade publications. Kirkus called it a masterwork of empathy and illustration. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review. School Library Journal recommended it for ages 4 to 8 with notes about its value for anxiety and self-acceptance discussions. Each positive review should have felt like victory. Instead, Claire read them alone in her apartment, wishing desperately that she could share the joy with the one person who'd believed first. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Saw the reviews. Very impressive. Coffee sometime to celebrate Tyler. Still Tyler. Always Tyler appearing whenever something good happened to remind her that escape was an illusion. Claire blocked the number and pulled up Sebastian's contact. Her thumb hovered over the call button for 5 minutes before she set the phone down, courage failing. The first week of March brought an unexpected visitor. Claire was working on a commission portrait when her apartment buzzer rang. "Claire Bennett, I have a delivery from Eleanor Hunt." She buzzed the courier up, confused. An enormous bouquet arrived, winter flowers in whites and silvers, elegant and unexpected. The card read simply, "Lunch this Sunday, the estate, come alone, E.H." Claire stared at the invitation, uncertainty warring with curiosity. Eleanor Hunt had been kind during Thanksgiving, but they hadn't spoken since the separation. Was this about Sebastian? About the book? About something else entirely? She texted back her acceptance before she could overthink it. Sunday arrived cold and clear. Claire took the train to Connecticut, then a cab to the estate. Eleanor Hunt waited in the library, same high-backed chair by the fire, same assessing eyes. "Thank you for coming, child. Sit." Claire sat, nerves making her hands tremble. "How are you?" Eleanor's question held genuine interest. "Surviving. The book launches in a week. Reviews are excellent. I should be happy." "Should be." Interesting choice of words. Eleanor poured tea from a silver service, handing Claire a delicate cup. "And are you happy?" "I'm proud of the work." "That's not what I asked." Claire set down the teacup carefully. "No, I'm not happy, but I'm protecting my professional reputation." "By destroying your personal life?" Eleanor's tone sharpened. "I'm 85 years old, Claire. I've lived through war and loss and building a company from nothing. I've learned that protecting yourself from potential pain guarantees actual pain. Your nephew's aunt thinks I'm using him for money and influence. My sister-in-law is frightened and overprotective. She's also wrong." Eleanor leaned forward. "I watched you with Sebastian during Thanksgiving. I saw how you looked at him like he was something precious you couldn't quite believe you'd found. That's not calculation. That's love." Tears burned Claire's eyes. What if people think the book only succeeded because of him? What if they do? Eleanor's voice gentled. Will that change the truth of your talent? Will it erase the 13 years you spent creating this story? Will it diminish the children who find themselves in your creature? No, but. Then let them think whatever small-minded thoughts they want. Your work will outlast their gossip. But if you lose Sebastian trying to prove something to people whose opinions don't matter, you'll regret it forever. Claire's throat closed. What if I already ruined it? What if he can't forgive me for walking away? There's only one way to find out. Eleanor pulled out her phone, typing quickly. Sebastian's at the Manhattan office today. Go. Now. Right now. Before fear talks you out of it again. Eleanor stood, pulling Claire to her feet. I have a car waiting. Use it. The drive into the city passed in terrified anticipation. Claire practiced and abandoned 17 different opening lines. By the time the car pulled up outside Hunt and Company, her palms were sweating despite the cold. Margaret looked up from her desk, surprise flickering across her professional expression. Ms. Bennett, I don't have you on the schedule. I know. Is Sebastian available? It's personal. The admission cost something, saying it aloud to his assistant. Margaret's face softened. He's in his office. Go ahead. The hallway to Sebastian's office felt endless. Claire's hand shook as she knocked. Come in. He sat at his desk, glasses perched on his nose, surrounded by manuscript pages. When he saw her, he went very still. Claire, is something wrong with the launch schedule? No. The schedule is fine. Everything's fine. The book is fine. She was babbling, couldn't seem to stop. I'm not fine. I'm the opposite of fine. Sebastian removed his glasses, slowly setting them aside. What's wrong? I made a mistake. The words tumbled out. Walking away was a mistake. Choosing pride over love was a mistake. I've been miserable for 6 weeks, and I know I have no right to ask for another chance, but I'm asking anyway because I love you and I'm sorry and... Breathe. He was standing now, crossing to her. You're hyperventilating. Claire sucked in air, tried again. Your grandmother said I was protecting myself from potential pain by guaranteeing actual pain, and she's right. I've been so afraid of what people might think that I destroyed the best thing in my life. Sebastian's hands came up, framing her face with familiar gentleness. You broke my heart. I know. I'm so sorry. But you came back. His thumb brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. That takes courage. I'm terrified people will say horrible things, that they'll diminish my work because of us, that your aunt was right about me being opportunistic and... Stop. His voice was firm but kind. I don't care what people say. I care about you, about us, about building something real that can weather outside noise. What if I panic again? What if I... He kissed her, cut off her spiraling fear with his mouth on hers, gentle and sure and perfect. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. Then we work through it, together. Because loving someone means staying even when it's scary, even when people judge, even when it would be easier to run. His voice dropped to a whisper. You taught me that you know, the little creature who learned to stay. Claire's laugh came out half sob. I wrote that story. I should have learned the lesson. We're both still learning. He pulled her fully into his arms, and Claire finally let herself collapse into the embrace she'd been denying herself for weeks. I missed you so much. I missed you too, every day, every hour. She pressed closer. I'm sorry I was such a coward. You were scared. There's a difference. He pulled back enough to see her face. But we're done running, right, both of us? Done running. The promise felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering wings. They stood in his office holding each other until Margaret knocked with an apologetic cough. Your 3 o'clock is here, Mr. Hunt? Sebastian groaned against Claire's hair. Terrible timing. Go to your meeting. I'll wait. She stepped back, wiping her face. I have nowhere I need to be. He kissed her once more, quick and sweet. "Stay, please. We'll have dinner after." Claire spent the next 90 minutes in Sebastian's office sketching idle designs while he conducted his meeting in the conference room. When he returned, loosening his tie with visible relief, she'd filled 3 pages with variations of intertwined creatures emerging from shells together. "Those are beautiful." He leaned over her shoulder. "New project?" "Maybe. I was thinking about a sequel. The little creature who learned to stay and what happens after staying. How she builds connections, finds her people." "I love it." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Dinner." They ended up at a small Italian restaurant in the village, tucked into a corner booth with red wine and handmade pasta. Conversation flowed easily, the stiffness and hurt from the past weeks melting under honest vulnerability. "I need to tell you something." Sebastian set down his fork. "About Adriana. About why Victoria's comment hit the way it did." Claire reached across the table, taking his hand. "You don't have to." "I want to." He took a breath. "We were engaged for 3 years. I thought she loved me. Turned out she loved the Hunt name and the money and the social connections. When someone wealthier showed interest, she left. Told me I was boring and cold and that money was the only interesting thing about me." "Sebastian." Claire's chest ached. "I believed her for a long time. Closed myself off. Focused on work. Decided it was safer not to feel anything." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "Then you fell into my lap. Called me insufferably arrogant. Made me laugh for the first time in 3 years, and I was terrified because you made me want things again. I'm not Adriana." The words came fierce, certain. "I don't care about your money. I care about the man who counts seconds and remembers coffee orders and believes in stories that heal broken kids." "I know." His smile was soft, vulnerable. "That's why I love you." They finished dinner, slowly savoring the food and each other's company. Outside, March wind cut sharp, but Sebastian's arm around her shoulders kept Claire warm. "Come home with me." He asked it carefully, giving her room to refuse. "Your place or mine? Mine has better heating, and a view. And I'd really like to wake up with you tomorrow." Claire's pulse skipped. "Then yes." Sebastian's penthouse occupied the top floor of a building in Tribeca, floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the city lights, minimalist furniture that somehow felt warm, bookshelves covering an entire wall. Claire gravitated immediately to the books studying titles and worn spines. "You've read all of these, some multiple times." He came up behind her arms, circling her waist. "The bottom 2 shelves are children's books, research and genuine favorites." She turned in his arms. "Show me your favorite." He pulled out a battered copy of Where the Wild Things Are. "My mother read this to me every night until I could recite it by heart. After she died, I'd read it to myself. The idea that Max could visit the wild things and come home again, that anger and fear didn't have to be permanent, I needed that." Claire kissed him softly. "Thank you for showing me." They moved to the couch, curled together, talking until exhaustion pulled them toward sleep. Sebastian led her to his bedroom, simple and elegant, enormous bed with white linens, more windows framing the skyline. "I'll get you something to sleep in." He disappeared into the closet. Claire stood at the window watching the city breathe below. When Sebastian returned with one of his T-shirts, she accepted it with a shy smile. "Bathroom's through there. Take your time." When she emerged, Sebastian had changed into sleep pants and nothing else. Claire tried not to stare at his chest, failed completely. He noticed mouth curving. "See something interesting? You're very distracting without a shirt. I can put one on." "Don't you dare." They slid into bed together, the simple intimacy of it overwhelming. Sebastian pulled her close, her back to his chest, his arm secure around her waist. "Is this okay?" His breath was warm against her neck. "Perfect." Claire laced her fingers through his. "This is perfect." She fell asleep to the rhythm of his breathing, feeling safer than she had in months. Morning arrived with golden light and the smell of coffee. Claire woke alone, momentarily disoriented, then heard sounds from the kitchen. She pulled on Sebastian's shirt from the night before and padded out barefoot. He stood at the stove attempting to scramble eggs with intense concentration. The coffee maker gurgled toast, sat burning in the toaster, and he looked absolutely ridiculous and wonderful. "You're cooking." Claire leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "Attempting to cook. There's a difference." He glanced up, and whatever he saw in her expression made him smile. "You're wearing my shirt." "You gave it to me." "I know, you look good in it." She crossed to him, stealing a piece of toast before it could become charcoal. "How bad are the eggs?" "Probably terrible. I don't really cook." He scraped the pan with determination. "Then why attempt it this morning?" "Because I wanted to do something for you, and because Martha Stewart makes it look easy on TV." He turned off the heat, examining his creation doubtfully. "They're brown." "Are eggs supposed to be brown?" Claire started laughing, couldn't stop. Sebastian joined her, both of them helpless with it. "Okay, new plan." She took the spatula from him. "You pour coffee. I'll rescue breakfast." They ate scrambled eggs that Claire had salvaged and toast with too much butter while discussing the book launch. March 15th was 9 days away. Hunt and Company had scheduled a launch party at an independent bookstore in Brooklyn, the same store where Sebastian had first offered her the contract. Full circle. Claire traced the rim of her coffee cup. From showing you the manuscript to holding the finished book in the same place. Poetic. Sebastian's expression turned serious. "Victoria will be there. She's on the board. I can ask her to skip it if you're uncomfortable." "No." The word came firm. "I need to face her eventually. Might as well be surrounded by people who believe in the book." "She hasn't reached out to apologize." His jaw tightened. "I told her she owed you that." "Let it be her choice. Forced apologies don't mean anything." Launch week arrived with terrifying speed. Claire spent Monday through Wednesday doing phone interviews with book bloggers and parenting podcasts. Thursday brought a photo shoot for a children's literature magazine. Friday, she visited her grandmother's apartment. Eleanor had been discharged from rehabilitation 2 weeks prior, fully mobile and sharp as ever. "You look happy." Eleanor studied Claire's face while they shared tea. "Truly happy, not just going through motions. Sebastian and I are back together. Really together this time." Claire couldn't suppress her smile. "I'm still scared sometimes, but we're learning to talk through it." "Good." Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Love requires courage. I'm glad you found yours." Saturday, March 15th arrived cold and bright. Claire spent the morning at Sebastian's apartment, both of them too nervous to eat proper breakfast. The launch party started at 6. They had 8 hours to survive the anticipation. "Tell me the worst thing that could happen." Sebastian paced his living room while Claire attempted to sketch away anxiety. "The book fails completely. No one buys it. Every child who reads it hates it. I become a cautionary tale about artists who can't deliver." She set down her pencil. "Your turn." "Victoria causes a scene. The media picks up on our relationship. People accuse you of sleeping your way to publication. Your career is damaged before it starts." They looked at each other, the fears laid bare between them. "And the best thing?" Claire asked softly. "Kids love it. It helps them feel less alone. You get to make more books. We build a life together." His voice steadied. "We prove that love and professional success can coexist." "Then let's aim for that." The bookstore glowed with warmth when they arrived at 5:30. Margaret had helped coordinate fairy lights strung between shelves, a display table showcasing the little creature with Claire's original illustrations on easels behind it, champagne and cookies shaped like small creatures. Claire's hands shook as she signed the first copy. Sebastian stood beside her, his presence steadying. People began arriving at 6. Marcus and Diane with the kids. Eleanor Hunt leaning on a cane but radiating pride. Both grandmothers together, already deep in conversation. Lily with her new boyfriend. Hunt and Company, staff, local booksellers, parents and children who'd received advance copies. At 6:45, Victoria Hunt arrived. She wore elegant gray, her expression neutral as she approached the display table. Claire's stomach clenched. Sebastian moved closer, protective. Victoria studied the book for a long moment, then looked directly at Claire. "I owe you an apology." The words were stiff but genuine. "I made assumptions based on fear rather than evidence. I was wrong about your character and your intentions." Claire's throat went tight. "Thank you for saying that. Your book is exceptional. I've read it 3 times. The second time with my young niece who struggles with anxiety. She asked me to buy her a copy for each of her friends." Victoria's voice softened fractionally. "You've created something that matters. I'm sorry I questioned your integrity." Sebastian exhaled relief. Claire extended her hand, and after a moment Victoria shook it. "Fresh start?" Claire asked. "Fresh start." Victoria managed a small smile before moving to speak with Eleanor. The reading began at 7. Claire stood before the gathered crowd, maybe 75 people crammed into the bookstore's event space, and opened the book with trembling hands. "The Little Creature Who Learned to Stay." Her voice steadied as she read. "Once there was a small creature who believed her true self was too frightening to show." She read the whole story, doing different voices for characters, showing the illustrations to the children sitting cross-legged at her feet. When she reached the ending, the creature emerging from her shell surrounded by others who saw her clearly and loved her anyway, several people were wiping their eyes. And she discovered that the scariest thing wasn't being seen, it was never being known, and that really staying fully present and vulnerable was the bravest thing she'd ever done. Applause filled the bookstore. Emma ran forward with a drawing she'd made of the little creature. Noah asked when the next book was coming. Parents approached with questions about using the story to discuss anxiety with their kids. Through it all, Sebastian watched with unmistakable pride, his love written clearly across his face for anyone paying attention. The party wound down around 9. Claire signed what felt like hundreds of books, her hand cramping but heart full. When the last guest left, she collapsed into Sebastian's arms. "We did it. It's real." "You did it," he corrected, kissing her temple. "This is all you." They helped Margaret and the bookstore staff clean up, then walked hand in hand through Brooklyn streets. March cold bit sharp, but Claire barely felt it. "What are you thinking?" Sebastian asked after several blocks of comfortable silence. "That a year ago I was just trying to survive, keep my grandmother alive, pay rent, maybe sell a portrait or 2. She stopped walking, turning to face him. "Now I have a published book. My grandmother is healthy, and I'm in love with a man who believes in me more than I believe in myself sometimes. I believe in you exactly the right amount." His hands framed her face. "You're brilliant and talented and braver than you know. I fell into your lap. Best accident of my life." He smiled. "Although technically you fell, I just had the good sense to catch you." Claire kissed him there on the street, surrounded by strangers and city noise, and the evidence of dreams becoming real. The next weeks brought a blur of success. The Little Creature hit the New York Times bestseller list at number 8. Schools requested bulk orders. Libraries added it to recommended reading lists. A literacy nonprofit asked to include it in their anxiety support curriculum. Claire moved through interviews and bookstore appearances with Sebastian often beside her, their relationship an open fact now. Some gossip emerged, whispers about how she'd landed the contract knowing looks when they appeared together, but the work spoke louder than rumors. When a prominent children's literature blog published an article titled "Nepotism or Merit?" The Claire Bennett question. Sebastian wanted to respond with legal action. Claire stopped him. "Let them question. The book will answer." She was right. Within a week, the article was drowned out by positive reviews from educators and child psychologists. The question of how she'd gotten published became irrelevant compared to what she'd published. April brought spring and unexpected news. A small animation studio contacted Hunt and Company about adaptation rights. The Caldecott Medal Committee added the little creature to their consideration list for the following year, and Sebastian's editor at a literary journal asked Claire to illustrate a series of poems about childhood and memory. "You're building a career." Sebastian said it with such satisfaction watching her sketch designs for the poetry project at his kitchen table. "A real, legitimate career that has nothing to do with who you're dating and everything to do with your talent." "It feels surreal." Claire set down her pencil. "A year ago I was nobody. Now I'm—" "You were never nobody." He pulled her into his lap arms, secure around her waist. "You were always this talented. I just helped the world see it." "We helped each other see it." She traced the line of his jaw. "You were closed off and lonely. I was scared and hiding. We made each other brave. So what do we do with that bravery?" His eyes held questions and hope. "Build something real. Something that lasts." Claire took a breath. "Move in together maybe if you want. If it's not too soon." Sebastian's smile could have powered the city. "My place or yours? Yours has better light, and space for a real studio." She laughed at his expression. "Also you, which is the main selling point." They sealed the agreement with a kiss that turned into more clothes scattered across the living room floor, the skyline watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as they learned each other with hands and mouths and whispered promises. Later, tangled in sheets with the city lights painting them in gold and shadow. Sebastian traced the bracelet on Claire's wrist, the little creature emerging from her shell. "I meant what I said, you know, the day I gave you this. You're brave enough to be fully seen." "We both are." Claire laced their fingers together. "That's what love is, right? Letting someone see all of you, the scared parts and the strong parts and the messy parts, and trusting they'll stay anyway." "I'm staying." The words held weight of vow, for all the messy parts and beautiful parts and every part in between. Moving happened over 3 weekends in May. Claire didn't own much, her art supplies, some furniture boxes of books and clothes, but combining lives meant decisions about wall space and closet organization and whose coffee maker to keep. Eleanor Bennett visited the penthouse approved with visible satisfaction. "You've built yourself a good life, sweetheart. Your parents would be so proud." Claire showed her the spare room they'd converted into a proper studio, north-facing windows, drafting table storage for supplies, a comfortable reading chair in the corner for Sebastian when he wanted to work nearby. "This is where the next book will happen." Claire gestured to the empty drafting table. "The little creatures learn to grow, about building community, finding your people, learning that being seen doesn't mean being alone." "Sounds like you're writing what you're living." Her grandmother's eyes twinkled. "Smart girl." June brought the Napa Valley trip for their 1-month living together anniversary. Sebastian had insisted on celebrating with 2 weeks in California wine country vineyard tours, cooking classes, mornings, sleeping late, and evenings watching sunset over the hills. Their cottage was tucked among grapevines, rustic elegance with a fireplace and a porch that overlooked endless golden landscape. Claire set up a travel easel on the porch and sketched while Sebastian read beside her, both of them content in comfortable silence. The cooking class was a disaster. Sebastian burned garlic. Claire oversalted the risotto, and they laughed so hard the instructor gave up and just fed them properly prepared versions. "We're terrible at cooking." Claire wiped tears of laughter. "Completely hopeless." "Which is why takeout was invented." Sebastian pulled her close, kissing her temple. "We have other talents." They visited a bookstore in downtown Napa on their last day. Claire found the little creature on the shelf, sandwiched between classics and new releases, and something in her chest settled. Her book existed across the country now, real and permanent and helping kids she'd never meet. "What are you thinking?" Sebastian appeared beside her with 2 coffees. "That this is real. That we're real. That I'm not going to wake up and discover it was all a beautiful dream. If you do, I'm having the same dream, which would be remarkably convenient." He handed her the coffee exactly the way she liked it. "Although I think we're awake. The evidence is pretty convincing." They flew back to New York on a Sunday, both sun-drunk and happy. The penthouse felt like home now, Claire's art supplies scattered across the studio, her books mixed with Sebastian's on the shelves, their lives genuinely combined. July brought news that made Claire's hands shake. Eleanor Hunt had fallen. Broken hip. Surgery successful, but recovery would be long. Sebastian drove them to Connecticut immediately. Eleanor lay in the hospital bed, pale but conscious. Victoria and Marcus already at her bedside. "Don't look so worried." Eleanor's voice was weaker than Claire had ever heard it. "I'm old, not dead. Although this hip is making me reconsider that position." Sebastian gripped his grandmother's hand carefully. "You're going to be fine." "Of course I am. I survived building a business in the 1960s as a woman. I'll survive this." She looked at Claire. "Come here, child." Claire approached the bed, taking Eleanor's other hand. "I want you to promise me something." Eleanor's grip was surprisingly strong. "When Sebastian asks you to marry him, and he will probably sooner rather than later, judging by how he looks at you, say yes. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about timing or other people's opinions. Just say yes." Heat flooded Claire's face. Sebastian made a strangled sound. "Grandmother." "Oh, hush, I'm 85 with a broken hip. I've earned the right to be blunt." Eleanor's eyes twinkled despite obvious pain. "Promise me, Claire." "I promise." The words felt like stepping off another cliff, trusting wings would appear. Recovery took months. Eleanor moved to a rehabilitation facility, the same one where Claire's grandmother had recovered. The two Eleanors became inseparable, scheming together about grandchildren and weddings in the future. August arrived with news of Caldecott consideration. The little creature had made the long list, one of 50 books being reviewed for the prestigious medal. Announcement of finalists would come in November, winners in January. "Try not to get your hopes up," Sebastian warned, though his own excitement was obvious. "The competition is fierce. I'm already thrilled to be considered. Anything beyond that is bonus." Claire meant it. The book had exceeded every dream she'd dared to have. September brought the start of work on the sequel. Claire sketched character designs while Sebastian read beside her. Both of them falling into the pattern they'd established, her creating, him providing feedback and quiet support. "What if it's not as good as the first?" Claire voiced the fear that had been building. "What if I can't recreate the magic?" "Then you'll create different magic. This is a different story." Sebastian set down his book, full attention on her. "Stop comparing. Start creating." The words unlocked something. Claire dove into the sequel with the same passion she'd brought to the original, but this time without the weight of proving herself. This time she was building on success rather than desperately hoping for it. October brought Eleanor Hunt's return home. The Hunt family gathered at the estate for Thanksgiving again, both grandmothers present, Marcus and Diane's family, Sebastian and Claire Victoria, who'd warmed considerably over the months. The feast was everything November should be. Turkey that Marcus had somehow not burned. Eleanor Bennett's stuffing recipe that Claire had learned to make. Sweet potato casserole from Diane. Cranberry sauce, still both canned and fresh. Dinner rolls that dissolved on the tongue. Eleanor Hunt said grace from her wheelchair, hip still healing but spirit undimmed. We give thanks for health returning, for family, growing, for love that teaches us bravery, and for second chances that remind us life always holds more joy than we expect. After dinner, Sebastian led Claire to the gardens. October had stripped the leaves, but the grounds held different beauty, stark branches against sunset sky, the first edge of winter cold making breath visible. They walked to the stone bench where Eleanor had first told Claire about Sebastian's past. He stopped there, turning to face her with an expression that made Claire's heart race. "I had a whole elaborate plan." His voice shook slightly. "Fancy restaurant, musician, rose petals, rose. The complete romantic cliché." "What changed?" "I realized you'd probably laugh at rose petals, and that what matters isn't the performance, it's the promise." He took both her hands. "I love you, Claire. I loved you from the moment you fell into my lap and looked at me like I was the most inconvenient thing that had ever happened to you. I love how you talk to books and throw food when you're passionate and see beauty in broken things. Claire's eyes filled. Sebastian, let me finish. He smiled through obvious nervousness. I love that you make me braver, that you chose love over fear even when fear felt safer, that you taught me being fully known doesn't have to mean being destroyed. He dropped to one knee, pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside, a simple platinum band with a small diamond, elegant, understated, perfect. Marry me, build a life with me, make more books, and throw more food, and teach our future children that being seen is worth the risk. Claire's hands shook as she pulled him to his feet. Your grandmother made me promise to say yes without overthinking. So say yes. His eyes held hope and vulnerability and absolute certainty. Yes. The word came out choked with happy tears. Yes to all of it. The life and the books and the food throwing and the scary, beautiful adventure of being fully known. He kissed her as the sun set over Connecticut hills, the engagement ring catching light as their families watched from the house windows and cheered. January brought the Caldecott announcement. Claire and Sebastian sat in their living room, watching the live stream with both grandmothers, Marcus and Diane, Lily and Victoria, all gathered around. The committee chair's voice came through the laptop speakers. And the Caldecott Medal for Most Distinguished American Picture Book goes to The Little Creature Who Learned to Stay by Claire Bennett, illustrated by Claire Bennett, published by Hunt and Company. The room erupted. Claire sat frozen, unable to process the words until Sebastian pulled her into his arms, and she finally let herself believe it. The medal ceremony happened in February. Claire wore emerald silk and the bracelet Sebastian had given her that first Christmas. She accepted the award with hands that barely shook, thanking her grandmother's Sebastian, everyone who'd believed in a story about a creature brave enough to be seen. This book came from my own fear, she told the audience. From believing I had to hide who I was to be safe. But I learned we all learn, if we're lucky, that hiding keeps us safe, but staying makes us whole. Thank you for seeing this creature. Thank you for letting her help others be seen too. The standing ovation lasted long enough that Claire finally had to gesture for people to sit. Afterward, in the lobby full of publishers and librarians and children's literature professionals, Sebastian found her surrounded by well-wishers. Mrs. Hunt. He offered his arm, the name still new enough to make Claire's stomach flip with joy. They'd married in December's small ceremony at the Brooklyn bookstore where everything began. Both grandmothers present, Marcus and Diane's family, Lily as maid of honor, Victoria giving her blessing, the bookstore owner officiating, vows exchanged surrounded by books and love, and the evidence of dreams becoming real. Yes, Mr. Hunt. Claire took his arm, letting him guide her through the crowd. Ready to go home. Always. They escaped into February cold, laughing like thieves who'd gotten away with something precious. The medal ceremony was important, the recognition meaningful. But home was Sebastian's penthouse. Their penthouse now with her studio and his bookshelves and the life they were building together. The cab ride passed in comfortable silence, Claire's head on Sebastian's shoulder, the Caldecott medal heavy in her bag. Her phone buzzed. Email notification from Eleanor Bennett. Subject proud. My darling granddaughter, I knew you would do extraordinary things. I knew it when you were 8 years old, drawing with crayons on my kitchen table. I knew it when you showed me the first sketch of the little creature at 16. I knew it every time a publisher rejected you and you kept creating anyway. But tonight, watching you accept that medal, I realized something new. You didn't just create extraordinary art, you became an extraordinary woman, one brave enough to be fully seen, brave enough to love and be loved, brave enough to stay even when running felt safer. Your parents would be so proud. I am so proud. All my love. Grandma Claire showed the email to Sebastian through tears. He pulled her closer, kissing her temple. She's right, you know, about all of it. I had help. Claire wiped her eyes. I had you, and both grandmothers, and this entire chosen family who made me believe impossible things could be real. We helped. But you did the work. You created the magic." He paused. "Although I maintain that falling into my lap was an excellent tactical decision." Claire laughed, the sound pure joy. "Best accident of my life." "Mine too." Sebastian's voice went soft with the kind of love that still made Claire's breath catch. "Every single day, mine too." They made it home and upstairs, shedding coats and formal wear, trading congratulations for comfortable silence. Claire changed into one of Sebastian's t-shirts while he made chamomile tea, the one domestic skill he'd actually mastered. In bed, wrapped in each other with the city lights painting them in familiar gold, Claire thought about the journey from that October night at the plaza to this February evening with a Caldecott medal, about falling and being caught, about running and choosing to stay, about the terrifying, beautiful work of being fully known. "What are you thinking?" Sebastian's voice was sleep-rough content. "That I'm glad I fell." Claire traced lazy patterns on his chest. "That champagne-stained suits in 47 seconds can change everything if you're brave enough to stay for what comes after. We're very good at staying now." His arms tightened around her. "Both of us. The best." She yawned against his shoulder. "The little creatures who learned to stay, and build, and love without walls." Sleep pulled them under together, two people who'd found each other through accident and chosen each other through courage. The medal sat on the dresser. The book existed in libraries and homes across the country. And in the morning they'd wake up and keep building the life they'd promised each other, messy and beautiful and fully courageously seen.